Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support this bill, which really seeks to develop regulations on the coffee industry in Kenya. But as I support this legislation, Mr. Speaker, I want us to reflect back on the introduction of cash crops in this economy called Kenya. Mr. Speaker, one of the biggest problems we have as a country, and in terms of looking at laws that we develop in this House, is the fact that some of these laws that we passed, are not laws which are inbuilt, that are designed to support local farmers. These are bills which are designed, Mr. Speaker, to create products for other markets, but not really for food sustainability. Mr. Speaker, I want to believe that there'll be a time that as a country, we can start developing regulations that promote sustainability, that promotes cooperative, that promote, building of consensus and also synergy between the farmers, government, and the private sector. One of my biggest pet peeves, Mr. Speaker, with cash crops is that we develop them to be able to feed the overseas market. That is the way, Mr. Speaker, we've been designed as a nation. I'm one of the biggest critics of the World Bank and the IMF, Mr. Speaker, because of the dangers that they are putting us through, because of the slavery mentality, or rather tendency, that they continue inculcating into our culture. People have been talking about the coffee industry for many years, Mr. Speaker. When I was growing up, the coffee industry was really there to support the local communities. In fact, I was having a conversation with one of the clerks, and he said to me, when farmers were growing coffee, when it comes to the time of paying them, some money will be set aside so that at the end of the financial year, these farmers are given money as a bonus. And some of that money will be from their own kitty, money that they saved, to really build sustainability. So, Mr. Speaker, as I read through quickly on the memorandum and object of reasons, these regulations that we want to develop to boost the coffee industry, we now must start thinking outside the box, Mr. Speaker. We must start thinking and saying, how do we build cooperative movements that will be able to ensure that a poor farmer in Kirinyaga, a poor farmer in Nyeri, a poor farmer in Kitale, Trans Nzoia County, and even now, Mr. Speaker, in Narok County, can be able to use that coffee plant, produce it locally, sell it, make the money, but also be part of a government initiative that has developed proper regulations that support that farmer, the private sector, and also to ensure sustainability of that crop. We are lamenting on a daily basis, Mr. Speaker, about brokers, coffee brokers. In fact, if you listen to most leaders from Mount Kenya, when they are raising their concerns about the coffee industry, they will tell you it has been taken over by cartels. But they will never tell you what it is that we need to do. And that is why I believe the senator, or the chairperson of the Committee of Agriculture and Livestock, Senator Murango, has thought that can we now relook at these regulations? Can we come up with regulations that promote sustainability of the crop? Can we come up with regulations that will ensure that these cooperative movements are not overtaken by cartels? And my contribution to this, and I hope that I can have some time to really sit down and discuss with the chairperson on agriculture who has sponsored this bill, being a committee bill, is now to say, how do we do away with all these huge controls by boards, and since agriculture is devolved, we take it to mini cooperatives, give those cooperative more powers. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the dairy industry today, and I think we can learn from each and every industry. If you go to Githunguri, which I've learned a lot from them, which we are now actually exercising. If you look at Fresher as a company, in Githunguri dairies, they are put together, all the farmers, decisions are made by those farmers. When they sell their milk, they know what they'll get as a bonus if they are to get it. They know when they'll be able to get. They control. In fact, the dairy board, I dare say, goes to them and say, how can we do this better? In fact, the dairy board goes to them and collect that data so that they can go out and say, we have done A, B, C, D in the sector. No, it is those farmers. So I believe, Mr. Speaker, it should be important, not that there is a national body that controls the coffee industry, but that control should go back to the farmers. That control ought to go back to the cooperative movements, the private sector working together. Mr. Speaker, if you look at cotton, not cotton, but cottage industries in this country, today you'll find beekeepers who come together, they produce their honey, and instead of selling it in supermarkets, they now go to weekend markets. You know, they go there, neighborhood markets, and they sell and they make their money. So as we think about legislation, I want us to do away with this issue of formulations of these boards. You're setting up a board. You set up a board, that board will need money to run. It is those farmers who will now be tasked again, and we're talking about taxation here. Every day we lament about the number of levies, the number of taxes that are introduced in this country. The only day that we will do away with those taxes, Mr. Speaker, I dare say, is the time when we start developing legislation not to please the IMF or the World Bank or to create products for the export market, but rather to create products that support sustainability of our small economies. I want a farmer in Kitale to have 2 acres of land. They grow coffee, Arabica. And when they harvest the beans, they can sell, make money. They will be paid some part of that money by a board or rather a cooperative that they form, that person is a member. Last year, or last parliament, Mr. Speaker, there was a bill that we discussed here, which was the warehousing receipt bill. That warehousing receipt bill, Mr. Speaker, was thought out very well, that we create warehouses where farmers can harvest their product, go sell them, they get a receipt, they tell them, today's market, this is the price. You can either give you this price, or you can wait until the time when we go sell to see how the market will change, and whatever would have earned more than what we are calculating now, we will give it to you as a bonus. We need to borrow from that legislation so that that farmer who has got 2 acres of land can also say, even if I'm to export this product, I will export it myself as a member of this cooperative. I've got a few pointers, Mr. Speaker, which I had raised, which I just want to highlight on them briefly, because I just put my thoughts really quick. Number one, what I don't find in this legislation